Welcome back to part 2 of this week's Across the Gridiron. So, heading obviously in part 1, we've looked at some of the teams who've impressed during preseason, if that kind of changed our opinion for anything. Let's switch it up now to talk about the rookies. So, I think this year's crop of rookies had a varying degree of success, a varying degree of snaps over the course of preseason. So, let's use some of that and project going forward in terms of what we're expecting to see
Yeah.
going into week 1. So let's start by just asking a simple question. Right? So who are you going to be watching? Who do you think you're going to be watching going into week 1?
So I think the list is very short because there's only one quarterback that is most likely to start, in week 1, and that's Cam Ward, right? In Tennessee Titans. He's the undisputed week 1 starter, and nothing that he showed in the preseason is going to persuade anyone to think otherwise, right? He didn't play a lot of during the preseason, but the bit that he did, showed that he's quite someone that is ready to step in. Now, of course, NFL games are a completely different matter. And so when he goes in and, when it really matters and points really matter in this, it's left to be seen. So I'm going to be watching, Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans, just to see whether he can at least make an improvement from, how terrible they were, last season. If they can go from last to anything but last, in their division, I think that would be some significant progress, for Cam Ward, and then they can build on that. But I think a lot of it is going to be around the skill positions, right? These are the guys that are more likely to impact their teams. So I look at running back Ashton Genty, Vegas Raiders. He showed, what he can do. I think he's going to be a 3-down back. He reminds me a lot of Marshawn Lynn, who used to play for the Seahawks, likes to run into contact, is going to bulldoze people. So I think that, clearly we've got Pete Carroll, over there at the Raiders. So he loves to run the football, as well, his connection to Marshawn Lynn as well. So I am expecting big things, from Ashton Genty. I think he's going to be someone for us to keep an eye on. I mean, there are other, Matto like this, the Patriots, TreVeyon Henderson. He was pretty good. I think he's someone that can, go into that Patriots team and can really, really help Drake May. Because not only is he a good running back, but he's also a passing running back. So he can catch the ball, as well, a receiving running back, so to speak. So that clearly, gives, Drake May options, right? Someone that he can hand off the ball in the backfield, but someone that can get him out of tight position, situations as well. And they always say that for, young quarterbacks, you need to have a good running game. So I'm expecting, some good things there. Some special mention for Omarion Hampton, from the Chargers, especially with Najee Harris, being injured, coming into week 1. I think he's going to see quite a bit of play time. And he looks decent. He looks decent, as well. I think for me, the wide receiver that really excited me, I think McMillan, right? The Panthers. He was already built, to be something special. And there was one pass that he caught, and sometimes when I watch the preseason games, I'm watching the receivers to see, how do they help their quarterbacks, and that's one thing that the Eagles receivers, know how to do. And you know how I feel about their quarterbacks. But AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, some of the catches that they make, in traffic, what seemingly looks like a bad throw, they make good out of it. When a receiver does those sort of things, that tells me that you're ready for the NFL. And he caught one of these balls, within traffic, and I was like, okay, I can see that. I can see that. I can see that you're going to stretch defenses, as well. And then, Emeka Egbuka, Bucs, he was good. I like him. I like him. There's a touchdown pass that he had, against the Steelers, and it wasn't a long 45 yards. It was a 5 yard, reception towards the end zone. But there were so many elements of that catch, that I like because the ball, he was basically dragging, the defender on his back. But he then came out to catch the ball under the defender, get his knee down, to make sure that it was a touchdown. All of those elements of a catch that rookies take time to like figure out. That tells me that you can make big plays, right? Because when the window is so tight and you still manage to come off with the ball, that tells me that you can be a special player as well. um Tennessee Titans, they had, a wide receiver, Elik Ayomano, I think. He shined a little bit, as well. So that was good. I think when it comes to, you know, the edge rusher, Abdul Kader looks good. He looks good. I think he's gonna make a difference, day one. Jihad Campbell, for the Philadelphia Eagles. Honestly, I hate this team, right? I don't know how they always do this. They always find one player that always flashes, and you can already see that he's going to make some contribution, this season. So honestly, I look at all of this, players, and I think, yeah, these are guys that are going to go into their team week one and they're going to make a difference. So I am definitely going to be looking at these guys and watching them in week one and beyond.
Yes, pretty comprehensive list you gave there, Eddie. I think it's obvious that there are a number of rookies who are certainly ready to start. Right, you mentioned on the quarterback side, Cam Ward is probably, barring injury, the only QB that's going to start, and drafted number one. Titans are going to start Cam Ward.
Yeah,
Goes without question. Um, he had 19 passing attempts over preseason. 10 was successful, 145 yards. But
yeah,
then he did have a couple. He had a couple of really good ones, especially one against Atlanta in week two. So he's looking good. I think Travis Hunter is obviously an obvious one who's going to start for the Jaguars.
yeah,
He did play. I know I think he's had to sit a couple of games out with an upper body injury, but you can see him being fit and being ready. Um, Again, I fully agree with McMillan at the
yeah,
Panthers. You know, this is the type of weapon that Bryce Young has been needing, and this is a quarterback in Young who there have been questions over him. Is he ready? This is a guy again. I think Young was Young the first. Was he a number
Bryce
one
Young.
pick?
Yeah, he was number one pick.
He
Yeah,
was number one, yeah. But he's needed weapons. He's been in a poor team. Hopefully, having McMillan there, who was obviously drafted number 8 overall, gives him something. And again, we have seen glimpses over preseason that he could be ready, and he is going to be starting for sure. Um, Amarian Hampton, again, as you mentioned, at the Chargers, again, I think he's a surefire starter,
yeah,
and whether he would have if Harris was available, because I think he's still rehabbing this eye injury he picked up.
mm,
They've been very careful with a number of reps that they've
yeah,
given Hampton because they don't want to, you know, they don't want to give him too much. But when he has played, he has looked fairly explosive for when
yeah,
he's
yeah,
for while he's been out there. Um, I'm just trying to think of some of the other names some of the other names you mentioned because you listed a ton of names there. Um,
yeah,
Gentry again was another one you mentioned.
yeah. Ashton Genty, the Raiders.
Yeah,
Uh,
again, he has shown some good vision, some good attacking. So again, he is one who I think you certainly had a good preseason.
yeah,
Is he ready to start? Is he going to start? Let's see. But I think I think the main thing is you look at certainly a lot of these sort of first round picks. I think they've all, for the best part, I think they've all done themselves fairly proud of the what
yeah,
what they've what they've put in. And I know a lot of the stories have been on like some people like Sanders and some of the celebrity picks and some of the other QBs, Jaxson Dart, who I'm sure we'll talk about. I mean, Jaxson Dart, again, he's had a pretty good preseason.
Yeah.
You can't see him start. Well, he's not going to start
No, he's not going to start
unless Cam Winston injures himself in the meantime.
Yeah.
But he's had a very good preseason.
He's got a good preseason, but New York Giants may start clamoring for him if Wilson doesn't play up to scratch, right? Because they got a taste. I think he's I think it was like 73% accuracy in the preseason game that he plays. 2 touchdowns, no picks. So people are gonna be like, get him on the pitch. So that's one. It's kind of one to watch, not in the sense that he's gonna start week 1, but in the sense that we're gonna see what happens to the Giants and how soon people start clamoring for him to be the quarterback.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, as I said, they've got a pretty stacked and experienced QB locker room there, haven't they?
Yeah,
they do. With Winston and Wilson. But yeah, you're right. Dart is the fans are going to want to see Dart. I mean, I don't think anyone's expecting the Giants to do particularly well this season. I think most project them to come last in your division, as I said.
Do you know what? You're saying that though, but the Commanders, have been looking a bit faulty in the preseason again.
We've said don't read too much into preseason.
Not to overreact, but let me tell you. Let me tell you why. My theory for why I think they've paid McLaurin, right? Because it didn't make any sense why they were dragging this thing forever, right?
I mean, spoilers for part 3, by the way. But yeah, that's okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Tell you what. That's actually. I tell you what. That's actually a pretty good place to stop because we do want to touch on McLaurin a little bit more in part 3. So let's. So in that case, let's pause part 2, and we'll be back in part 3 when I wonder what we're going to talk about, Eddie.
As we've teased it very nicely.
All right. See you in part 3.
Thank you for tuning to this episode of Across the Gridiron.
So for more NFL-related news, insights, and somewhat outlandish Cowboys opinion and rants, please leave a comment or hit like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification button so you never miss a video of any of our nonsense.
And we'll be back soon at Across the Gridiron.
I'm the bad guy. I'm the